Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. Welcome to another episode. The Lions' first preseason game is in the books. In this episode, we'll hit on our reactions after game one. We'll discuss on the backup quarterback position, plus other roster updates as well. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
This is Jahmyr Gibbs, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Hall of Fame coach Jerry Ainger, named Michigan High School Coach of the Year. He was also Detroit Lions Coach of the Week. He's a scouting and training director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, I know you're busy getting ready for the football season, but appreciate you taking time to get together. It's been a while.
Yes, and I am in the state of Michigan.
That he is. Joining Coach and I to talk about this is James Cook, the senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle. He was named the Sports Writer of the Year 2025 for Community Newspaper Holdings Incorporated. James, welcome back from vacation, man.
Always good to be here. Trying to catch up after not being able to see the game live because where I go on vacation, there is no internet and no cell phone signal, and it's kind of great.
It can be. It definitely can be. And guys, it's been a minute. We have a lot to talk about. Coach has talked about it. You know, he's in Michigan. I am not in Michigan, actually. I am in Spain, so I'm wearing my Los Lions football Americano shirt to help represent over here. And you're right, James. We were gone, and we were out hiking, my wife and I and the kids, and we came back, and a lot of things have been going on with the Lions. And my wife said something, and it made me pause. She said, Sam Laporta got traded. And I was like, wait a minute here. That doesn't sound accurate. So I didn't freak out. I waited and checked. But obviously with the Gibbs information, with Teddy Bridgewater, with the pass route, I'm like, what is going on here? Obviously, Sam Laporta is still a Detroit Lion and hopefully will be for a very long time. But there are some big things that have happened since we all got together. So let's get through this stuff first, the old stuff, and then we'll get into the new stuff. The Lions signed Jahmyr Gibbs to an extension, very similar to Bijan Robinson's. James, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Bijan wasn't the highest paid running back in the NFL for very long, right?
Right.
Day, two days, maybe, not even two. I mean, it's a good contract for Gibbs. I think it's what he deserves. I think he, as of right now, is the best running back in the NFL. He can do everything that you want a running back to do. So why shouldn't he be the top paid guy in the league? It also didn't break the bank for them. They've been banking on, we're going to have to re-sign these guys and this guy and this guy and this guy, and that's why they haven't gone crazy in free agency. So it's right along with the plan, I think, of what they wanted to do. Maybe a little bit more money than they wanted, but I think that's pretty much always going to be the case, right?
I think it is. And here's what's the alternate option? You pay less money because the guy's not as good? Is that what the alternate is? So, Coach, yeah. I know it's a running back position. People are like, should you pay the running back that much? Well, I guess you pay good players that much. And Jahmyr Gibbs has shown in these last couple of years, he's developing into a very special kind of guy. And he's a guy that makes your offense a whole lot more difficult to defend. So I'm a big fan of it. I think it was worth it. What are your thoughts on the contract?
Oh, totally. Sign the guys that are in your building, and you know what they bring to the table every day. That's why they signed them. And we see it on film on every time they play a game. So happy for them.
All right, well, let's jump over to the other news. Teddy Bridgewater has retired. The astronaut has been brought in. We've got Josh Dobbs, who was on the Lions practice squad a few years back for about 10 days. You know, we said before, James, Teddy wasn't going anywhere, because you talked about the contract and the way it was built in, and it just seemed like it is what it is. But things developed, and he's not there. What do you make of this change at the QB2 position, especially, in early to mid-August?
Yeah, well, I mean, from a lot of reports, Bridgewater just did not look very good in practices early in the season. So I don't know if it was a case of the Lions said, hey, we don't think this is working, and it's kind of agreed to mutually move on or whatever. And then they got him to agree to retire. So the contract basically comes off the books. So that's the good part about it. And then they were able to turn around and use that money on Joshua Dobbs, um, who has been a pretty capable backup quarterback in the league. He's bounced around a bit, but he has really shown some flashes that we've seen. Especially he had a couple games there, I think with the Vikings, where he looked really good. So I think he's a pretty good, capable backup quarterback. But then also in the game, not to get ahead of ourselves, we saw Luke Altmaier look pretty solid. So I think that the quarterback position is in pretty decent hands.
Yeah, and like you said, a lot of people were thinking, or the reports were coming out, Teddy wasn't looking consistently good in practice. I wasn't worried. I know stuff on tape from the last couple seasons, but I figured, you know what, if he's there and he's going to step up to it and meet the challenge that's needed. Every system is different. So you've seen other great quarterbacks go to different systems, not look good, and then you put them in a different system, they look great. That said, if he recognized, the Lions recognized it wasn't where it needed to be, you have to pivot. From the free agents that were available, I do think Josh Dobbs was the prototypical best guy out there. Like you said, we've seen flashes of him do things, and that's kind of what you need in that backup spot. And again, we'll get to Altmaier, but he looked very, very good in his first outing for a UDFA. Coach, quarterback change, and not the number one, it's the number two spot, but it's one you want to be as solid as possible. What are your thoughts on this whole transition?
Yeah, I mean, you bring in a veteran that's been through the fire, and then you got that with Altmaier, like you said. I thought he looked pretty good. He's got a lot of work to do, but we're not looking for him to be number two, or and hopefully keep him around. So Teddy, he even said it, very emotional with MCDC when he said he was done. You could see they had an unbelievable relationship, and again, yeah, it didn't look well in practice. Probably has to do with what his body feels like getting out of bed every morning. So. Wish him well, and I think our quarterback room's solid.
All right, I'm actually feeling pretty good about it myself, and it sounds like James's. We'll get more into that, but one area that took a big change in the last week was the center position. Cade Mays having the injury, going to be missing significant time, not out for the year, but missing some significant time. That means Seth McLaughlin and Juice Scruggs are going to be competing to fill in for that. McLaughlin was the guy, I think Neese is also in that room as well. McLaughlin did a lot of the preseason stuff, the game one. Juice Scruggs is coming back from an injury. So, James, this is a shakeup thing. Like, I don't want to call it deja vu because it's not deja vu, but it's another, okay, here we go again, or maybe not. What's your initial impression here on this?
I mean, the initial impression would have been, yes, here we go again. But then you look at it a little closer, and you looked at the Lions have prepared their roster and made it deeper to be able to absorb some things like this. They picked up Scruggs in the Montgomery trade. They had McLaughlin, one of those quiet signings in the off season from the Bengals practice squad. And then they got Michael Neese, the veteran, back there too. So they've got depth behind Mays. His injury is listed as 8 to 10 weeks, which 3 to 4 of that is going to be the preseason. So you're looking at a 4 to 6 week, missing 4 to 6 weeks in the NFL. So it's less than half the season. So it's not the worst thing in the world. You get your starting center back for the playoff run, you hope, the playoff push and the playoffs. And then in the meantime, you can get Seth McLaughlin maybe some experience. Juice Scruggs is banged up a little bit too, but that doesn't seem like anything long term. And McLaughlin played pretty well in the preseason game, given that this was a line that was cobbled together and hasn't really played together much, as one unit. These 5 guys. I mean, so. And we know from his college days in Alabama and Ohio State, like he is one really good center. He just needs to prove that he's back over that Achilles injury, and the Lions have themselves a potential diamond in the rough.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the depth of this roster, right? Coach, we've talked about your favorite mantra is next man up. And you live it, you know it in a way that James and I don't. And the Lions, Coach Campbell has talked about how they brought in more competition than they have before. It's more competitive roster than they've had in the past. And they even mentioned Tate Ratledge might take some snaps there just to get more familiar with the position. I personally think that's just to be familiar with it for emergency situations, or not maybe looking to make him the starter there. I think they'll probably keep him where he is. But what is your analysis on the center position, Coach, and some of your thoughts on that?
Well, we have Nice too. So I mean, there's not like, and again, James, you guys both said it. We loaded the roster up with competitive position and guys that can play in crunch time. Maybe not guys that are 17 game starters, but the guys can fill in on injuries on 2, 3, 4 games. Scruggs soft tissue. He was back with the ones yesterday. McLaughlin, DC, MCDC talked about, man, he can play, and I wasn't worried about what he did in his game. In the preseason game. I want to bring that up because, he said he did, nothing when he plays with his pad level down, which tells me he's standing up sometimes. And when he plays with his pad level down, he's a really good center. Scruggs has been in the fire. Again, he's back. So yeah, again, we're so much deeper. The rat thing about, he's going to take some snaps. That's one of those smoke screens, throws it out there. Let's see what I think the media runs with it on it. And also, he get him some snaps if we have to get to our fourth center. Well, if we have to get to our fourth center, we're in a lot of trouble anyway. So it looks good. Again, like you said, McLaughlin's a stud, man. The guy's, he can play. He's built center, low center of gravity. Or at least pretty, he's tall too, but if he gets his pad level down, and then Scruggs has got, look at his grades from his last 8 or 9 games last year. So I think we're in great shape with that, with our best center coming back.
Yeah, and again, we've got a lot of depth, and there's a lot of moving parts there. But I like the fact that we seem to have raised the floor in that room, and that should work out well. There were a number of moves. James, you want to get to those and talk about kind of what's happened here in the last couple of days?
Yeah, well, the Ratledge thing I think is just a thing for in case they ever had to make an in-game adjustment where you're only going to go in the game with 2 centers. So if you have 2 injuries and a couple guys are out, it's just to have an emergency option, I think, with Ratledge. But yeah, they waive injured running back Kyle Robichaux and safety Lauren Strickland this morning. And then they signed running back Travion Williams and cornerback Ikau Boye-Do. And Boye-Do is an interesting guy. He made the Chiefs as an undrafted free agent 3 years ago, played in 6 games, won a Super Bowl ring, and then has been in practice squads the last 2 years, I think, with the Cardinals and Giants. Off the top of my head, I think. But he was born in Ghana, so he has the same international pathway protection or exemption as Hassanin, so they could keep an extra guy on the practice squad if they so choose, because it looks like Hassanin's for sure going to make the 53. So you can do that with 1 player and have 17 guys in the practice squad. But he does look like a decent corner, especially a special team guy. Williams is a veteran backup, but maybe his best thing is that he's a good kick returner. He's averaged 22.7 yards a return over the last 4 seasons, 23.6 last year. He's been in the NFL for, I think, 7 years or something like that, and has not scored a touchdown, which is kind of the trivia question about him.
Wow. All right. Well, yeah, a lot of moving parts there. And a former Detroit Lion, Terrion Arnold, signed with the Seattle Seahawks. Coach Campbell said, he wishes nothing but best for Terrion, and it's just unfortunate set of circumstances. And that's a big bummer that it hasn't worked out with the Lions with everything that took place there. Yeah, and the running back thing is because there are a few running backs that are banged up with the Lions right now, and we'll get into that as well. But they need to have some guys in there, and the defensive back, you can never have too many of those. That room is got a lot of competition in it right now. Well, before we move forward, folks, I just want to, before we get to the meat and potatoes part of the show anyway, talk about preseasons here, which means there's more people tuning into Detroit Lions stuff, and we want to ask you to help us to help other people find our show. So if you could give a like and a comment on YouTube, a share, drop a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, follow us on Twitter, those would all be greatly appreciated, and just help more people find Not the Same Old Lions podcast. Okay, preseason game 1, takeaways. It's in the books, you guys. The Lions lost to the Bengals 16-14, multiple turnovers. The score almost seems irrelevant. Campbell's presser on Saturday said he liked some of the special looks they got in this one, Coach. So they got some end of the half looks, end of the game stuff. Nice to have those experiences. And so, what's some of your overall takeaways from this one, Coach?
I think, like you said, the experiences, the guys that stepped up, the guys that came into play, the guys that showed that they want to play, and some guys that are stacking the wrong plays as we talk. And but I think even the time, not taking the penalty, kicking the field goal, that those are all things that you hope in practice you can use them, but when you get the opportunity to do them in a preseason game with the younger guys, it's great. So I think some guys really stepped up. I think some guys pushed themselves down the depth chart. We'll talk about some of those individuals later, but all in all, I was pleased with it. I was excited. You could see we got some 4-string guys that are flying around on defense, guys, and I watched some plays on some of the guys, like, oh my God, is he going to make the squad? But it looks like, but I think that's that competition. I think that's what we talked about, how they loaded the 90-man roster up with dudes, as we would say on the coaching staff. And we have a lot of dudes out there. There's going to be some guys that get cut that hopefully we can stash them, squeeze them, and put them underneath the practice squad.
All right. Well, Coach, I appreciate that. And like you said, stacking the plays, right? That's something Coach Campbell said. Now it's time to see if the guys can do it again. And as you like to say, stacking the plays. And folks, again, hopefully our audio is coming through okay. We are doing these from alternate locations. So thank you for bearing with us on the show with this, because it's not our preseason. Maybe it is, but we're all making the best of the situation so we can get the show to you guys. So we're just doing our best with that. Want to give you that heads up. And now let's move to the offensive line. Your thoughts on the game. We talked about how it was looking with the center position, but how does it grade out? How does it look for you? How did it pass the test here? James, it was a wet game. It wasn't perfect. There were some penalties. I think that probably pulled Coach's hair out. But what are you seeing from the offensive line? What are your thoughts after this game?
Well, and one thing that was really nice was that Blake Miller looked the part. Looked like exactly what you wanted when you drafted him. Somebody who could step in and play at right tackle from day one, and you're not worried about Jared Goff taking a couple sacks from that spot every game. So he had a 66.6 PFF score, I think it was, which was the best of the Lions offensive line. By a couple of points behind Melvin Priestley, who is the undrafted rookie free agent who played fewer snaps than Miller did. But actually, that 66.6 score is way better than Penny Sewell's first start in the preseason in the NFL. His was only 38.6. So that's why we look at PFF scores, but we don't take them as gospel. I know, yeah, especially on the line. Especially on the line.
Right. And you got those.
Other positions that can be pretty helpful, but I think on the line is really weird.
And don't mean to interrupt, but Panay had just switched positions to play right tackle. So yeah, we'll take that in consideration. But go ahead. I'm positive about Blake too.
No, you got to put all that out there. You got to put all that information out there. And again, this Al Carson did some of this research. We want to thank him for that too.
Yeah. He did this thing about the first round rookie offensive tackles and what their PFF score was in their first start in the preseason. So Miller's was 66.6 in 39 snaps. Penei Sewell's was 38.6 in 60 snaps. This is, I think, they're over their whole preseason.
Okay.
And then Taylor Decker was 74.8 in 87 snaps. So you don't play 87 snaps in any single game. So that's got to be the whole preseason.
That would make sense. I'm going to piggyback on that, James, and say, the offensive line I thought looked decent. Okay. Especially when you consider, and we remember in this game, the Lions were going up against some of the Bengals ones in this game. And so that was encouraging. The penalties still drive you crazy. And then that's something, clean up. I think that's what's going to happen. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in the next game. Now that the offensive line had a chance to play together. Frazier all over the place. Mahogany might be settling in better, but again, there were some penalties. But all things considered, I'm feeling okay. That's my very generic, bland thing, because Coach is going to break it down a little bit deeper. I'm going to echo James on Blake Miller, right tackle. That's good. Settling in, that's going to be the guy there. But what'd you see out of the offensive line, Coach?
Well, I agree with it, and the big thing is if we're going to get to, I think we're going to talk about individuals a little bit later, maybe. But anyways, there were some great run plays.
No, you can hit on the offensive linemen right now if you want, any of them.
There were some great run plays. I mean, there was times I watched those guys moving bodies, and again, scheme changed, things like that. But I think the one thing too is, like you said, is they went against the Bengals dogs to start, and we moved the football in that first drive. We had a big drop. I think we had a big drop in that first drive. So, I think bouncing around, Frazier is just taking a huge hit on social media. But guys, you know how hard it is to make in the NFL, let alone play 3 different positions in a preseason game? I mean, what that tells me about Frazier is he's on the squad. We know that. That's telling me that this kid can play, and they're going to throw everything at him to see what sticks. They're going to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks on the wall. That's what I love about the Frazier thing with that. Oh my God, he gave up 3 penalties. He had 3 holds. Well, one of them was a little shaky. Okay. And again, that's, part of the thing on a big run by TK and, on that big swing pass, I think it was. So I don't think, but, I watched McLaughlin a ton because I wanted to see what he looked like. When the guy locks on, you get out, Mahogany's the same way. Rat's the same way, I think. And then when you get how much leadership do we have out there too in that, where the calls and stuff were on, McLaughlin was probably making the line calls that he had been started as number 1 for all of a week. So, man, what a positive experience. Positive experience watching the game and saying, dang, we did some pretty damn good things, with these guys and that situation. So, I look forward to seeing how they grow and how they, again, first week, the second week in preseason, let's see how much better they get.
All right. Well, let's go to quarterback play then. Okay. Altmaier, he appeared competent. And I'm not saying that as like a demeaning thing, but when you get an undrafted free agent out there making the start, that's a compliment. All right. Mm-hmm. Maybe he would have looked even better if there weren't so many drops by the wide receivers. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's put that out there too. Yeah. The fumble hurt. That wasn't good, but there were lots of drops out there. I know the weather was, wet and stuff like that. And I know that real football games have that. So that is true. But, very encouraged by Altmaier, who's coming in to potentially be your number 3 on your roster, if not on your practice squad. Josh Dobbs got in there. Again, all things considered, I'm comfortable with him as the number 2. So, James, what were you seeing out of the quarterback position?
Altmaier looks like what you hope to get in a developmental third quarterback. He processes well. He sees the field. He's an accurate passer for the most part, and he knows how to run the offense. Those are the things you want out of a quarterback. Everybody wants the elite guy who can run for 1,000 yards too. But it's much harder to take that elite athlete and teach them how to be an accurate quarterback than it is take an accurate quarterback and have them do other things in the offense. So I think that they saw a lot of good things that they, wanted from him. Campbell said he needs a lot of snaps, and he played 44. So, he got his lot of snaps in that game. He played twice as much as Josh Dobbs did. So I think that they're just going to flood him with snaps and work in practice and all that, and hope that they got themselves a nice backup quarterback that they can groom for future seasons.
Yeah, I mean, with Dobbs coming in so late, it also worked right into that to get him all those reps. But also, he's the guy you want to get all those reps, especially right there. Coach, QB2, QB3, what are you thinking here on all this?
Yeah, I mean, Dobbs is going to be it. He's been in the fire. We know that. But like he just said, Coach Campbell said he needs 1,000 reps. So 44, we got a long way to go. Just kidding. Because, they got a lot of stuff in practice. But Campbell makes those things and coaches make those things. It was not too big for him. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm in the NFL. Oh my God, I'm doing a preseason. He just looked fluent out there. He looked calm out
Yeah.
there. I mean, there even on the fumble, I mean, he made a move. He probably put his head down too quick. Snap was off a little bit. Just things like that. But for the way he ran that offense and what he did in that first couple drives, and yeah, we don't drop one here, drop one there. His numbers look better, but yeah, I think we may have one of those diamond in the rough guys that we can develop, and in a couple 8-10 years when Goff retires, we got somebody to fill in for.
Yeah, and I do want to say, I got to give a shout out to NFL Plus, man, because I was able to watch the condensed version of the game afterwards here in Europe. Now, the weird thing is I couldn't watch it on Wi-Fi. It wouldn't let me, but if I went and used my cell data, then I was able to watch it. So either way, I was able to see, that's how I was able to, understand why his stats looked the way they did and whatnot, and it's encouraging. So let's move over to the wide receivers then. James, we got some drop balls. Tesla, I love it. Is this a concern? What are you feeling on all of this?
I mean, a drop is always a concern. I'm not overly concerned about it, but it is worrisome. I mean, the one drop turned into an interception, so that was obviously bad. That made Altmaier's stats line look a lot worse than it was. Um, but all the reports are that Tesla is playing pretty well, and hopefully hoping for that second year jump in a wide receiver that you see quite a bit in the NFL. So when I was driving home from vacation through Grand Rapids, I saw him on some billboards in Grand Rapids. So they're making a big deal out of him there, at least from the area that he's from. So I think the Lions are going to make a big deal of him too. Uh, so I think it's I'm not too worried about it. No, I would say and they got some pretty decent production too from those kind of veteran guys that they brought in to push some of those guys like Tesla and Lovett, with Cedric Wilson, Tariq Black, guys like that. They actually had pretty solid games.
All right, yeah, and again, it was able to see that. Coach Campbell even brought up Tay Martin, saying he showed up, and they're happy to have Cedric back. Coach, I'm not concerned about Tisla because first off, he's like the fifth option on the team, and it's the second year, it's camp. I still think it's a growing process. Now, if it's happening 6 weeks from now, maybe there's a concern. But right now, I'm not concerned about it. I'm going to wait for the full judgment rather than getting over anxious about something. What do you take away from this?
First of all, when you talk about drop passes and then you say Tesla, love it, we got to give a pause between that because it sounded like you were loving it that he was dropping passes. So I want to clear that up.
I apologize. Sorry about that one.
I was like, love it. And then I went, oh yeah. But anyways, no, these are days we don't want to stack, right? These are days we don't want to stack, and dropping passes we don't want to stack. JMO drop passes too a lot his rookie year, guys, and a second year, right? Let's bring that up real quick. Couple things, different quarterbacks. Okay, when Goff is throwing the ball, is Tesla dropping anything? Again, it doesn't. Whoever's in the game, you got to make the quarterback look good. Tesla had a bad game. Lovett has been for the last couple years been in this. He's had that little bit of dropping passes. So he's gonna need to have a really good week, a week or two, to secure a spot on there. Where Tesla, I'm not concerned with it, but again, it's make your quarterback look good, wide out, and those guys did not make the rookie look good.
All right. Well, before we move on to the defense, we want to hit on running back here, Jacob Sailors. He looked competent. He looked like the guy we saw last year in the NFL in his spot play, right? Now he showed up. He could be a solid option. Again, Sione Vaki's banged up. Now he is banged up. So that 3-4 spot's injured right now, which is why the Lions have brought in more guys. But Sailors is looking like the kind of guy they need him to be. Obviously, we need Pacheco to come back. Pretty much like 2, 3, and 4 on the depth chart are all banged up right now. James, any thoughts or concerns on the running back room other than just everyone needs to get healthy?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do need to get healthy. I mean, and Robichaux was that other guy who was hurt and they released because of that. But Sailors did have a really good game, according to PFF, and put the asterisk on that. He was the highest grade player on the offense, and by a lot. he was 87. The next best player was 72, and that was Cedric Wilson, the wide receiver that we mentioned earlier. So they were the only players that were out of the 60s in the offense. But Sailors had a great game. I mean, and his stats say that too. I mean, 8 carries, 55 yards. That's almost 7 per carry. That's you'll take that all day. Yeah, but even
Oh yeah.
Blackshear was running the ball really well. He was running a 6.6 a clip. So, they were getting good production and good, churning yards out of that run game. So that's good to see as a whole.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right, Coach? It's not just how are the running backs doing well. What's helping the running backs do well, right? And that is the offensive line. And that's what James, I think, was alluding to right there. So that gives me encouragement right there. Any thoughts you have on the running back room?
Yeah, Sailors. I saw Campbell's. He was pretty disappointed in who that we lost for the year because he said which running backs out. Anyways, we mentioned it earlier, but anyways, going back to Sailors, every opportunity he gets, he stacks it. You know what I'm saying? Every opportunity he gets, he does stuff. He does stuff that people go, okay. Okay, and he was, the holes were good, and he hit those holes. I didn't get back to watch to see how he blocked any of the pass sets. I never got, I haven't had time as the three of us have been flying around trying to get stuff done. But so that'll be the one to say. But he did those things for us last year, returning and stuff like that. So I think he's really cementing his footing in the 53-man roster.
All right. Well, before we move on to that defense, I want to thank our supporting sponsor, Cherry Republic. Their famous chocolate covered cherries. That's what these are right here, folks. To their cherry salsa, so much more. I like the cherry nut mix myself. They're helping people enjoy the best of Northern Michigan, one bite at a time, whether you're in the United States or here in Europe. I'm bringing these as gifts to this family we're going to be staying with here. Check them out at a store near you or go to cherryrepublic.com. Life, liberty, beaches, and pie. Okay, the defense. This is the area where there's all these concerns, right? Well, the Lions defense seemed to hold up against the Bengals offensive starters okay. So let's start with the defensive line. James, what did you see out of the defensive line here?
I mean, the headline was Ahmad Hassanin coming through with the 2 sacks. The one, I think, on the first play of the game on Joe Burrow. He was the highest rated PFF player on the Lions offense or defense, almost 90, 89.9. So he was just impressive in the 29 snaps that he played most, and 21 of those were pass rush snaps. So I don't know if that is indicative of how they're going to utilize him in the season or just how this game went. But that I think that bodes well if they're going to kind of put him in the pass rush role opposite Hutch and then piece together defensive ends on the rundowns, or if they just view him as a third 3-down guy. But him coming out and playing really well, that says a lot.
Yeah, this is going to be a big boost for the team, Coach, because he is exceeding expectations. So when you get guys like that on your roster, that's huge. I've heard people talk about him changing positions due to his body size and stuff. And I might have this wrong, so maybe you guys can help. It's like moving him from a more of a pass rusher to a big end. Is that right, Coach? And what is the difference in that for someone who doesn't fully, understand those specifics?
Well, the big end thing is they want that thumper on the end that can hold the edge and put some kind of pressure, collapse the pocket so Hutch can come from the backside. So I think that's a big thing. They did that a lot with Levi, and then they would bring Levi inside. But if he can get that pass rush juice as well as the big end, that's why he got so much larger. It's funny because we were just talking about our big end position on the high school level. I'm trying to find a guy right now to be that guy, and I think that's what he's done for himself. He's worked so hard, but and again, if you get a big end guy that can collapse the pocket, bring it to Hutch, but then also can translate from run stopper to pass rusher, the defensive line is just. It's going to be it will be one of the best around. I mean, it's when you got those 2 end guys. So, he's done a phenomenal job. I like him. I'm not saying a word about him. I'm happy for him. I hope he just keeps playing. That's all I'm saying on him.
All right. And that's the thing. That's a guy that we've just loved. Everybody's loved his story and his energy since he joined the team. And now it's like, all right, now you're seeing even more growth into it because of, we had the injuries and everything last year. Coach, defensive line, another guy that was brought up, I believe even Coach Campbell may have mentioned Chris Smith, right?
Yeah. Oh, Smitty. I mean, here's the thing: is he said he's a really smart guy. Okay. Well, let me think. He went to Cranbrook High School in Bloomfield. He played 4 years at Harvard. He played his fifth year at Notre Dame. The guys, and the thing is, he's been grinding for 3-4 years for that. So the way I look at it is, he came out of Cranbrook, which isn't a football powerhouse. They're hockey, and they got all that. They're hockey and stuff like that. And he goes to Harvard, and then he comes there, and then he ends up going to Notre Dame and just dominating. I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I remember there. But when the Lions picked him up as free agent 3 years ago, again, what did he do? He just hung around. He got into some games. He gets slapped back down to practice squad. They bring him back up. He produces. They slap him back down to practice squad. He's those. That's the guy. Those are the guys you want. And let's talk about his smarts again. What did he do in that game? 10 guys on the field. He recognizes there's only 10 guys on the field. There's a big gap. So what does he do? He lines up at nose tackle so that they have to double team him. And they stop to play for a 4 or 5 yard game. Just stuff like that. And those are things that, as a coach, you're going, God, he lacks a little bit of this, but man, I think we got to keep the guy around. I think he's just one of those guys that's going to be around, and he's going to be a practice squad player, roster squad practice roster, and keep him around. Wants to grind. He's never been the elite, but he's been in the league. I think this is his 4th year now, correct? I think it's his 4th.
It's something like that. Yeah. He's been around for a while. He's kind of the Tom Kennedy of the defense.
Yes. Yeah. Great call on that. I mean, it's just fun. So I'm happy for him on that one.
All right. Well, let's talk about another guy on that front defensive line, Sky Loco, as they know him, Skylar Gill Howard. Coach, tell me what you're seeing out of this guy, or what you saw on that film, and then James, follow up on that.
He can run. The dude is fast, and he's just nonstop. His motor is, those are I can't remember which play it was. It was to the right or left, and he chasing guys down from the backside. And he's a sideline to sideline guy. He's got great bend. He just, what I mean by bend is, he can sink his hips. He bends at the hips, not at the waist. I mean, he gets around the corner. He gets under pads. He's playing to the echo of the whistle. I mean, he's just another one of those guys that, the Lions are, I know they're looking at him and going, man, is he that guy? Is he that guy? And the energy has seen in him. Those are those energy level guys that it seems like they don't get tired. And that's when the veterans and stuff, when they think they're tired, they kind of look over and go, what's the deal with this guy? I mean, it's just motivational guys like that. So look, I can't wait to see the next 2 preseason games with him, to see if he, like, again, pounds those stats and keeps doing exactly what he's been doing to get to the point he's at right now.
James, I'm letting you guys know it's starting to get really loud out on this balcony here. There's a school out there. They have some activities going on. So if there is a little ambient noise, I do apologize for that.
Nope.
Let's go to the linebacking group. What did you guys pick up on that? I did not notice anything on the linebacking group, so I do have to apologize on that. I had a condensed version. James, were you able to catch anything?
Yeah, one name that kind of stuck out, and he didn't play as many snaps as a lot of guys, was Amen, and I'm going to try to pronounce this,
Yeah.
Beninga. Uh, and he played pretty well at linebacker. He graded out as the second highest player behind Hassanin for the game. Played middle linebacker. Made some plays, and he's a guy he was with the Bears the last 2 years as a backup, primarily a special team guy. So if he's somebody that Dave Phipp really takes a liking to and says, hey, we need to keep this guy for special teams, he could be a dark horse for the roster. I mean, he only played 13 snaps, but he played a bunch of those in coverage. And the Lions are looking for a coverage linebacker to replace Anzalone. So that could be his road to making the team, or the practice squad even, out of the gate there.
All right. And Coach, you know a lot about the linebacker position. Tell us what you saw in this game.
Yeah, I thought, again, we don't have the guys in there. We got, the big thing with Trey, I'm going to talk about Nowoski again because I keep seeing that he's going to get cut and he's not going to make it. But Nowoski he played the Mike and Sam position and he played pretty well. On both spots. A couple. I think he had a couple, maybe one or two missed assignments. Didn't hear anything negative on that. From again, I don't know the exact defensive scheme, but him playing both of those positions, that just brings me back to Frazier. Frazier playing multiple positions on the offensive side of the ball. Trevor May playing multiple positions on the defensive side of the ball. That's telling me that they want to make sure he can back up both positions because we know we can do on special teams. So, but the one that I'm not even pronouncing what James said, he was another one of those guys that was moving around pretty well. And those guys all did. White, of course, is. It's just we talked about that. The guy's just a missile on everything he does, and so again, I think that position at linebacker, but I think Trevor stood out playing two different positions and probably graded fairly high on both of them.
Yeah, I'd love to see what Devin White was able to do. That's encouraging because that guy may be playing a bigger role than we thought when he first signed with the Lions. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But let's go from the linebacking core to the secondary. We go from White to Whiteside. Right? That guy had a nice breakup on a pass, and it looked like the receiver had a step on him, but Whiteside didn't give up on the play and took care of the ball and didn't let it get there. Roger McCreary, who hasn't had the best reviews coming out of training camp, seemed to exceed those expectations on the field. So that's encouraging. James, what did you see out of the secondary in this one?
Yeah, McCreary did play well. So I mean that's very encouraging. He's one of those guys where that they're just at that age where you wonder if there's going to be a slip, and you're glad that you don't see it. Kind of like we've seen with Rocky Sin. You were when the Lions signed him, you were like, okay, we're taking a flyer on this older vet guy. Turned out he hasn't lost a step at all, and was a very productive player last year. And I think they're hoping that they hit that again this year with McCreary. And from the first game, it looks like they have so far.
And you're right, James. Rakestraw got hurt in this game as well, and so that adds a little extra something to it that's confusing. So maybe concerning. Coach, what did you see out of this defensive backfield, and how are you feeling about it right now? And I want to point out they seem to hold the Bengals in check against their number one, so that makes me encouraged.
What's that? Yeah, Abney will hit you. I mean, that dude, he comes downhill. Nick made a good recovery on that situation. Rick Straw, here's the thing: is the way he came in and tackled, you kind of knew he was going to get hurt on that because he turned his body instead of coming squared up. But the thing with Rick Straw, he's another one of that our fans decide, let's just hammer this guy so that we can tell everybody that draft pick, that draft class was horrible. Maybe let's root for the guy that he helps us out and becomes the person that he can become. And then we're going to be really deep at the backfield. Okay. Rakestraw did some good things. He did some bad things. The tackle was a bad one, and that's where he got dinged up on a little bit. So the good thing is he's not out. The good thing he's still in camp. The good thing he has 2 games. After 3 preseason games, if he's still doing supposedly the stuff that he's doing, yeah, then we're going to say move on and let's go find somebody. But right now he's in camp. Let's root for the guy. Abney, he is a dog.
I love that positive energy out of you, Coach, and you're exactly right. Let's look for the best of these guys, overcome the mistakes and the weaknesses, and maybe people start taking tackling lessons from Jake Bates. Let's hope not. But Bates looked solid in the game. He did everything you'd want, including making a tackle, but let's hope the man does not need to make tackles. So, all right, well, you know what? One preseason game is in the books. They've got another one coming up. Now they've got film on everything. Everybody has gone through the motions against new teams, not guys that what the other side's running. So this is where some of the biggest steps, I think, take place. James, anything you're hoping for, looking for, or keeping your eye on from now till the next game, or with the next game coming up?
Well, you're looking to see if some of these guys that maybe got dinged up last week in practice come back. If guys like Vaki can play, if they can get guys, like Juice Scruggs back in there, get him some reps in the next game and see what they got there too. And you hope some of these guys that were pleasant surprises in the first game can do it again. The McCreary has a good game. He had a good game from Eric Hunter. Nick Whiteside had a great game. Thomas Harper at safety came in and looked pretty good, which you were hoping that he would because he's a potential starter this year. Until they get their all pros back. So you're looking to get good games, continue to stack good games, like Coach says, out of these guys that you got good ones from now, and add more other guys to it. But some other guys that played well was Batchy at linebacker and Nowaski at linebacker, and so there's going to be a lot of competition for these spots, and these last couple of practice or preseason games are going to determine a lot of that.
That they are. And coach, is it accurate? It's a big step from game 1 to game 2 because you got all these new guys in camp. They're learning the system and they're figuring out where they fit. What are you looking at out of these players over the next 5 to 6 days?
Playing, who's not playing. Why I was running with the ones practice because we're setting the
Coach, you were frozen for about 20 seconds. Can I have you start over?
Yep. Yeah. So the big thing is you're working with the ones in practice, but then you go in a preseason game and it's not the same ones. They because they're sitting guys and stuff like that. So I always talk about the eye in the sky. The eye in the sky don't lie. And take that tape, realize what you did great, build on it. Realize what you did wrong, fix it, and then get yourself better. If you moved down the depth chart because of the way you're preseason, make sure that you make better plays during practice, so that if they're only giving you 1 rep in practice, give you 2, and so on and so forth. They're gonna right now with 2 game reps in week 2, you probably should be a little bit nervous, and I think that's the biggest thing. But use that time wisely, get that extra work in and things like that. If you're going to practice and you're walking out the field after practice, and your name's not St. Brown, Laporta, Gibbs, and so on and so forth, you're not doing yourself justice, and you're probably going to end up getting cut.
All right. Well said on those things. Lots to keep an eye on. Coach Campbell was asked about the coaches and then asked about communication with the offensive coordinator. He said they need to figure some things out, work on some of the nuances of it, but he said it's all good. Coach, you can relate to that. When you have a different head coach and a different offensive coordinator, the communication between each other it will sink and flow as time evolves. It was also interesting. We talked about, where these guys are and trying to get the extra reps. Coach Brad Golly reported that today's presser, Campbell revealed that he clearly lays out for the Lions players where they're at on the roster, where they stand in the staff's eyes, and what they need to do to make the roster. He says, I want to make sure all the players know that you're not in right now, or you may think you're in, but you're not. You may not like it, but you can respect it. So Campbell said it's fair to the players to be clear with where they stand and it's what he would want as a player. And so that's what he does as a coach. And then he says the cream rises to the top. Coach, philosophy, Coach, is that about the best way you can be with your players?
Oh, open communication. Open communication, and that goes with the staff as well as with the players. Like he just said, we had inter squad scrimmage on Saturday, and it's I got a whole new staff. And yeah, there's some things and you fix it, but every one of those, and I hope every one of those players on our defense, offense, special teams know where they stand. And I try to, we don't have the time that the NFL and the college teams do to reiterate that, but we talk to people all the time, and I think that's how you develop it. And I think that's one of the best things about Dan Campbell. How many times since he's been there have you ever heard, even the players that have left, have you ever heard a player complain about Dan Campbell as a head coach? That they didn't know where they stood. And I think that's why he's going to be around until he retires, not when the management decides he needs to retire.
Well, here on that, folks. Thank you for dealing with the technical difficulties. I don't know how many are going to come through on your end when listening, but we've had some hiccups here and there. It's time for final thoughts on the program. James, go ahead and get started. What's your final thoughts on this?
I know Lions fans are freaking out about injuries, but I'm going to try to put this in context. The Lions have actually, in the preseason, stayed healthier than most teams. Things look bad, but if you look at other rosters, there are 75 players in the NFL right now who have already been put on injured reserve. Only 2 of those are from Detroit.
Wow.
Kendrick Law and Aiden Kainina, the undrafted free agent defensive tackle. 73 other players in the NFL have been lost for the season. And so other teams are dealing with this as well. So the Lions, they do have injuries. They've got guys coming back from injuries. But the good positive part of it is that they're not the season-ending type for the most part, whereas a lot of other teams are dealing with a lot more of those types of injuries.
All right. I like that perspective there, James. Coach, what do you have?
Yeah, totally agree. Let's just stay healthy for the first time and since we've been rooting for them and move forward. And that's the big thing.
Mhm.
All right. My final thoughts are Jameson Williams is going to be big this year. I just got this feeling. All right. And I'm really optimistic. I think a lot of people are. And then I got to talk about the uniform colors. They wore the blue and silver, the silver and Honolulu blue, the ones that I love. And everyone talks about how the Lions lose with these colors. Okay. And they lost 16-14. But going into this game, if you know the Bengals are starting their starters and they're not, don't buy into the conspiracy theory, folks. They're still an awesome look. I hope they wear the uniforms in the regular season this year. They did in last year. But more importantly, I hope they win football games. Folks, thank you for sticking with us till the end, through all the noise, through all the hiccups we got on the show as we're all reporting from alternate locations. Thank you for tuning in. Please tell your friends and family about the show. Find us on social media like Twitter and Instagram. Check out more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.